What's up, magical people? Welcome back to Your Most Magical Life. I'm Mia Magik. Today we're talking about self-care and routines, especially in relationship to the Virgo full moon. And of course, I'll be leading a ritual Thursday, March 9th at 9 a.m. PST. So if you would like to join, make sure you click the link in the description. And this is a really big moon. This is a really important full moon. It comes right before the Aries new moon, which is technically the astrological new year. So in ancient times, that would have been sort of like our new year around the spring equinox. That was really what we celebrated as like the rebirth, and winter would actually be the end of the year. So, there's a lot of different traditions, a lot of different ways of looking at time measurement, and we related to it very differently back then than we do now. But this is the last full moon of the year, the astrological, more cosmological year before the astrological rebirth, before the new awakening of spring, everything that's blossoming, right? We're gonna have this like dead, dormant energy in winter that ends, and then things start to bloom again. Things start to be reborn, right? All of the animals come out of hibernation and all of the babies start being born. That's why Imbolc, which was my last video, was really about, or it's called In the Belly, because things are still in the belly, right? And then now they're releasing from the belly, they're emerging, they're being reborn. So in relationship to self-care and routines, now most of you know I'm a Gemini, so routine is not something that I get super excited about. But my routines and my rituals and the things that support me and allow me to do what I'm doing are really impactful and really important. And even right now, like I just wanted to sit on the stairs because I get to look out on the mountains, and I have this huge window in front of me, and it's just so beautiful. And as you know, those of you who've been following me for a while, I am living in an Airbnb in Boulder, Colorado. I left LA. It just felt like the time had come. And so I needed a change. Speaking of shifting up routines. And one of the interesting things about Virgo energy, not only is Virgo, the word, we think of it as the virgin, but the virgin originally meant sovereign. And the Vestal virgins, Vesta is a Roman goddess of hearth and home, of femininity. And so a Vestal virgin was the sovereign priestesses of Vesta. And so all of these words, like so many words that we have in the modern day, have just been completely skewed, used against us, their meaning completely changed. And so that's a really important element of Virgo, is that it's about your sovereignty. It's about how you are in service to your power, your connection to the divine. And what's interesting about Virgo as a Gemini is that they're both ruled by Mercury, and it's the very different sides of Mercury. So when you look back into like OG, Plato and Euripides and what was the guy who, Pythagoras, like these old Greek philosophers and teachers. Pythagoras was a mathematician, but he spoke a lot about the spiritual nature of math. Mercury, or Hermes, it was Hermes in Greek, Thoth in Egypt, Mercury in Rome, or the Roman language. But that god, that energy, that archetype was the messenger of the gods, right? It's intellect, it's magic, it's quick wit and thinking, it's our communication, but it's also the order and the analysis, which originally meant to cut into pieces, right? When we analyze something, we're like trying to make sense of it. And so those are the two sort of sides of Mercurian energy that show up in Gemini, right? The communicator, the storyteller, very much my archetype, the teacher and student. And then the Virgo is like, most of you know, like if you have Virgos in your life, they want things to be ordered. They are like the ultimate type A sign. They need things organized. They want everything in its proper place. Like, especially if it's in relationship to the home, because Virgo is an earth sign. So usually when you go to a Virgo's home, things are tight, for lack of a better word. Things are buttoned up. There's not a lot of like chaos. Whereas with someone like me, you know, I love color. I grew up in a home without a single white surface, not one. And like lots of stones and lots of art and lots of just color everywhere. Like the only white surface is there's like the bathroom sinks, but even the bathroom countertops and like the bathroom walls, like all deep, bright colors, granite, stone, all different kinds of things. And that's very much what I love. It like fills me up, makes me feel good. That might be a little bit overwhelming for someone with a lot of Virgo energy. So when we're talking about self-care and routines, this Virgo full moon, right, is about the illumination of where we have not been in our routines, or where we have not been caring for ourselves, where we have not been honoring that sovereignty and knowing who we are in a good way that allows us to both have the routines that support us and also like have the space and the flow to be in that earthly feminine energy. Because since the archetype of Virgo is the Virgin, it's this sovereign woman, basically. And so you can see how that sort of over analytical, like very type A thing is sort of a masculine trait, what we would think of as masculine, right? And we all know gender is a spectrum. We all have masculine and feminine. We all have all sides within us. We are multifaceted, multidimensional beings. So there's no black and white in that way. But that's a really beautiful balance that Virgo brings, is that the archetype is of this sovereign priestess energy. Even when you look at like how the constellation has been represented in the sky, and then because it's ruled by Mercury, it has this very like structured, masculine, balanced energy. And so that's really the most important thing in your self-care routines. Like for me, it's morning time. I had to get up, get this video. I have an appointment. I have a call. I have a bunch of things to do this morning. So I made the shortest part of my morning routine, which every morning I get up and I go outside before I look at my phone. I go outside, I take my cats out, they run around and play in the dirt and like, you know, dig their little holes and go pee. And we just have this like moment outside together. And one of my sisters, I'd been saying that like, oh, I haven't been dancing as much. It's like winter, it's cold. I've been like really trying to just stretch and do my workouts. And she was like, oh, well, that's the first thing I do is I just dance in the morning. And I was like, you know what? That's a perfect thing to add into my little outside moment with the cats. If you've read, my dear sister Maria wrote this book called Growing Joy. It's super amazing. And it talks about just looking at a plant before you look at your phone, looking at something green, looking at something alive, and how that helps stimulate your brain and open your eyes in a good way, rather than like, you know, focusing on the very draining, literally and figuratively, light and battery of your phone. And so I am at an Airbnb and my partner was like, babe, we're not buying all of our plants or buying new plants here. All of our plants are being babysat in LA. And so there's not a lot of alive things in this house. So I was like, well, what's my option? Go outside and look at the trees and look at the mountains and look at the rocks and look at the snow. And it has been a fucking game changer, y'all. Like, I don't even touch my phone. I get up, me and the cats go outside. Now with adding the music for the last couple of days, of course, I have had to just like open my Spotify, but what I've been doing is like really hacking that. And I like open my Spotify, press the song before I go to bed, and then all I have to do is like press play and connect my AirPods. So that's been a really amazing addition to my morning routine. And I just am out there for, 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on my schedule. And then what I really love to do is I love to do yoga in the morning. That's a really great way for me to get connected. And then I love to usually I do at least a 33-minute meditation every day. Sometimes I do 2 or 3, depending on like if they're shorter, I try to get an hour of meditation in every day. And so I really like to use my afternoon sort of like lull, or when I need a little break, to go outside and take a walk and then meditate outside on the earth, somewhere where it's totally quiet, where I can really deeply connect. I don't have to feel like I'm inside. I'm like getting a totally new perspective. And I usually just climb to the top of a mountain and really ground in. And so that is how I do my routine. It's not 2 hours in the morning, right? It's usually like, okay, a couple of minutes, come in, turn my phone on, check what's going on. Okay, now I'm doing my yoga. Great. finish, start my morning, have my little things, and then like take that opportunity in the afternoon to go out and drop back in. And so for me, that sort of wave throughout my day is really supportive. It helps me be more productive. It helps me feel more connected to myself. It helps me like when, things get overwhelming or frustrating or I get annoyed or whatever happens throughout the day, then I have this beautiful anchor point. I have this beautiful moment where I can say, okay, like I'm going outside. And so that's the invitation for this Virgo full moon, is to just come to the completion with any of the ways. That's what the full moons are about, right? Those of you who've been following me, you know this. But when the full moon illuminates something, right? It's like the shadow has been illuminated. We can see with the light of awareness and consciousness. Light has always, obviously, like when we turn on a light, we can see, but light in fairy tales, in stories, in myth and legend has always signified that light of awareness, something being illuminated. So when the moon is full, we have this beautiful opportunity to see really clearly what are the ways or the habits and behaviors, especially in an earth sign, what are the ways that we have been not operating in service to our highest good. And what's so great about Virgo is that Virgo is the archetype of the servant, and not in the way, well, that's like the shadow, It's really about Virgo being the archetype of being of service. And so that can be being of service to yourself, being of service to your family, being of service to your community, being of service to your audience, whatever it looks like. So the servant, right, is like when we're like, that's disempowered, that's people pleasing, that's, obsequiousness and allowing ourselves to do or be something that we don't necessarily want to be. So this full moon is asking us to come to completion, have awareness, illuminate the shadows in which we may have been too much of a servant to something other than what actually serves us or what we desire to serve in our lives. Does that make sense? I think it does. So for me, right, like if I was just getting up and just being on my phone, like that's a huge, I see my partner, God bless him, like he has his routines and he does his thing his way and he like loves to do his journaling in the morning, but like he turns on his phone and like Slack and emails and like all these messages from his company. And it's crazy. It's a lot of energy to just like have pouring in. And for most of us, that's our habit, is to just like let the phone pour in this energy to us before we go and do the things that are of service to our own souls, of service to our highest good, of service to what serves us. And so that's a really important invitation for this full moon, and something we're going to be talking about in the ritual. Again, if you want to come and join me for ritual, is how do we come to completion? How do we make commitments to ourselves for the kinds of habits, the kinds of service that serve our deepest service in the world, or that serve our highest selves, that serve our embodiment of that divine God, goddess, high priestess energy, right? So the big thing about this moon and this lunation, again, there's a couple of things. Virgo is it doesn't necessarily like rule the home in the way that Cancer does, but your body is the home of your spirit. The way that your house is the home of your body is the house of your spirit. So that is why Virgo and the routines and the self-care and how you tend to your vessel is really like the foundation of your life. And Virgo is this beautiful invitation for all of us to really just look at, okay, like what do I need? What does my body need? What does this temple, my home right here that goes with me wherever I go, no matter what does that part of me need? And so self-care, that was a big thing. Like I said, I noticed that I had just not been dancing much. And as I'm leading Sorceress, my amazing awakening journey program that's just going so beautifully and is so powerful, as I'm leading sorceress, I'm dancing because I'm leading dancing. But I was just noticing that I wasn't doing a lot of dancing in my personal private life. And that just didn't feel good. I finally went out on a Saturday night and this weekend, and I was like, oh, wow, even my body doesn't remember quite how to move the way that it did because I'm dancing once a month. And so it was like, okay, I need to get this going and get this shifting and get back into my body, get into my hips. Some of you I'm sure follow my dear sister Sahara Rose, and twerking really does help you release trauma and help shed stored emotions that have been locked in our hips, stagnant energy. And so I've just been outside in my yard every single morning, just getting it and dancing and having so much fun, and it feels so good and it charges me up. And so that's the invitation, is to look at what self-care looks like for you. What is the thing that you've been missing the most? I'm so excited for our ritual and sorceress. We're going to go super deep. It's going to be very juicy. And sometimes that self-care is more sensual or more sexual. Sometimes it is more physical, right? Last night, one of the things, because of the full moon, I was I could have just stayed at home and kept working and done all the things. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to resist going to the gym. Usually, because my partner is out of town right now, usually I go to the gym with him. And he's the one that's okay, come on, baby, let's go to the gym. And I don't need any motivation because he goes every single day. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go 4 days a week and that's fine. And I feel good about that. And he left a few days ago and I haven't been since he left. I'm like, oh, I didn't go by myself. And I was like, I want to come to completion with that pattern. I want to illuminate that part of myself that's relying on him, sort of the opposite of the servant, right? I'm sort of not forcing him, but I'm energetically allowing him to serve me in that way, but I'm not taking the sovereign choice and making the effort and motivating myself to go and do that thing on my own. So I was like, okay, boom, that's a huge part of this for me. I'm going to end that pattern. I don't need him to choose to go to the gym and take care of myself and my body and do the thing that my vessel needs. And I want to be of service to her. I want her to feel good. Yes, yoga is amazing. And I'm going to do my yoga practice today, even after working out last night. But not right now, not in the morning. I'm going to do it in the afternoon because that's when I have time. I got to lead a bunch of calls. I have a lot of things going on. So my whole afternoon will have my routine. And if that's what it takes to care for yourself, to not give yourself this specific time that if you don't achieve it, you're going to blame or shame or punish yourself. You're going to make yourself wrong. You'd be like, oh, you're so bad or you're so stupid. You shouldn't do that. You didn't do your morning routine. That's not self-care. That's not helpful. That's not of service to yourself. We don't want to do that, right? We don't want to do that to ourselves. There's no reason to do that. And so this sign is also, it's not just self-care in okay, are you working out and are you eating well? It's how are you speaking to yourself? Again, that's that Mercurian energy. That's that other side of Mercury that is ruled by Gemini, but it's the same planet. So that's one of the things that I've kind of always been what? How is Gemini ruled by Mercury and so is Virgo? Really? Those two just seem so opposite. Earth and air, floaty and grounded. It's never made sense to me, but it's okay. And so that's really the invitation that we have to look at. How am I communicating with myself? How am I relating to the way that I care for myself physically or energetically in my mind? Am I being of service to my highest good with my thoughts and how I'm speaking and what I'm listening to? Those of you who are on my email list, make sure you're on my email list. I've been just really sharing lots of deep, amazing, vulnerable stories and just what's alive for me. It's a present, I write them every week. So it's a really present touch in with what's going on for me at the moment. So you can find that on miamagik.com on my website. And every single week I've just been writing these really deep experiences that I've been having. And in particular right now, it's we just tend to focus on the bad. We tend to focus on oh, this person doesn't like me or they abandoned me or they ghosted me or these people think that me sharing this is bad or stupid or they unfollowed me or they're talking shit about me or whatever it is. And we completely forget how profoundly outweighed all the blessings and outweighed that negative shit is by all the blessings and all the goodness and all of the magic and the beauty in our lives. And I fall victim to that too. I just like have moments where I feel like, oh my God, like I did something wrong. I shouldn't have shared this, or I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done this. And ultimately, it's just not helpful. If we make mistakes, this is another part of Virgo, right? And like being of service. If we make mistakes and we do something that's out of alignment with our truth, if we say something that's coming from wounding, if we do something that's, seeking validation or being seen or heard, and we're coming from a like lower vibrational energy than our truth, we're not just like expressing who we are in our truth. That is our responsibility if we affect someone. And I have made so many reparations with friends and people throughout the years because of that. So many times, over and over again. Because like we all want to be seen. But if you can acknowledge that that's where you're coming from and that affected someone, then you're doing great. And if you are in your truth and you are being your highest self and you trigger someone or you affect someone, that's their responsibility, not yours. That means you are in alignment. You are being of service to your divine energy, to your highest self. And that triggering someone has nothing to do with you. Nothing. And so that's really the invitation here with these self-care routines, because it's not just about like, oh, are you dancing and are you doing your yoga? It's how are you being of service to yourself in order to be of service to the world? And if you're doing anything that's not being of service to you or your highest self or your growth, then you're missing out on being of even deeper service to the world. And this is a big one, especially with women, I've really noticed like we cannot be talking about each other. You cannot be talking shit about other women and like thinking that you're being of service. Now, venting and like, expressing your feelings to someone you trust, that's totally different. But if you're just stirring the pot intentionally, that's not helpful. And that's not a way to be of service to the goddess and the divine feminine as a whole that exists in all people in just different forms and different levels. So again, if you would like to join me for ritual on Thursday, March 9th at 9 a.m. PST, I would absolutely love to have you. It's going to be such a beautiful, juicy ritual, and I'm so excited. And really the invitation here is to look at, how am I not being of service? How could my self-care and my routines, both in my mind and in my body, how could those things help me be of greater service to the world? Because as we all know, the planet needs us right now, y'all. She is in desperate need of our species waking the fuck up and not buying shit from Amazon and not raping and pillaging her and not doing all of the horrible things that we're all participating in different ways and different levels. Thinking that like even when we call trash getting thrown away, there's no away. There is no away. There's no such thing. It stays right here on this planet, on our earth. Can you imagine if we were covered in trash? If you like glued plastic bags and shit to yourself, plastic bottles, like all these things? No, she cannot tolerate that anymore. And it's not that she can't. She's gonna be fine. She's survived for billions of years, but we haven't. So, like if we don't want to be the next mass extinction, then like we need to shape up and we need to be of service to the living sentient deity, the goddess we call Mother Earth and Mother Nature, the mother we all share. So this is my invitation to you all. I'm so grateful for you watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And again, if you'd like to join me for ritual on March 9th at 9 a.m., it's going to be so yummy and juicy. Thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful that I get to be of service to the world in this way. I am Mia Magik, and as always, it is my deepest honor and pleasure to welcome you to your most magical life.